What's up, guys? If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show. Okay.
It was a particular, it was a very specific moment in time when this particular technology, like, remember I said that they were subscribing to the cheapest version of Inmarsat that didn't have the GPS embedded. When MH370 disappeared, they started giving GPS embedding for free.
Okay. That's reassuring. It's good to know.
So I could walk you through it piece by piece if you want. It's also in my podcast. It's also in my book, which I should have mentioned.
This part I'd love for you to walk through piece by piece, because there's an elaborate, I guess this is like in May, June when you're coming up with this 2014, but there's an elaborate potential theory that comes out of this. So let's walk through this.
So yeah, this is where it gets, this is where I need to tell you. You need to tell me where I'm getting too deep into the weeds, because it involves this. So this is this is what the BFO data is. You know that when a train is going towards you, the horn sounds like a higher pitch, and then when the train passes you, it's a lower pitch, right?
Yes.
When things move in relation to each other, that change of velocity changes the perceived wavelength or frequency of the thing, whether it's sound or light, okay? So imagine you're a geosynchronous satellite. You're 23,000 miles up looking down on the Indian Ocean, and you're looking at India, you're looking at Eastern Africa, you're looking at Southeast Asia, you're looking at Australia. And all of these people down there, there's like literally 1 billion customers probably, or not customers of Inmarsat, but people who are doing things with the radio wavelength. They've got cell phones, they've got garage door openers, they've got walkie-talkies. And you need to communicate with your customers amidst all of this noise. And so what you do is you're looking for a very narrow bandwidth. You've been assigned a little patch of the frequency. And you have to stick to that patch, or you're going to be in violation and they might take away your license, okay? So complicating that is the fact that some of your customers are on boats, that's no big deal. Some of them are on land, that's no big deal. The problematic ones are the ones that are flying around in airplanes, because these guys are going hundreds of miles an hour to and fro, and that they're causing significant changes in the frequency because of their motion relative to you. So how do you get rid of that? There's a thing called Doppler precompensation. What that means is that if I know that you're moving relative to you, I'm going to transmit at a lower or a higher frequency so that to compensate beforehand, so that when it gets to you. Okay, so listen, you're expecting me, let's say our frequency is 100, right? And I'm flying towards you in such a way that what you get is you're going to get 102. The 100 is going to, because I'm flying towards you, that 100 is going to turn into 102 by the time you receive it.
Sure.
So what I'm going to do is, being very clever, I'm going to transmit it at 98.
Right.
And then when you get it, it's 100, so it looks perfect, right? So how can you do this? There's two ways. There's two different manufacturers of these boxes. One is called Rockwell, and they have a patent on the best way to do it, which is you transmit it to me at 100, and I'm picking it up at 102. So I just subtract 102, 100, 2. I'm going to transmit to you from 98, and you're going to get 100. Boom, done. Easy, but it's got a patent on it. So I'm working for a company called Thales, which gets bought by Honeywell. And they built a box, and they can't use that technique because it's under patent by their main rival. So they have to
the math is under patent, like just a mathematical.
No, the technique of subtracting your
but you can
incoming.
Patent that?
I mean, listen, somebody could write and say, Jeff's wrong. The patent's not like that. That's my understanding. Okay. It may be wrong. The fact is that this is how Rockwell does it, whether it's because of patent or not. So this is how Thales does it. Thales takes information from the, it's called the IRS, the Inertial Reference System. It's basically a kind of fancy GPS.
Okay.
It knows where the plane is based on GPS and some other things. And it knows where the satellite is. And it knows where it is, and it knows how fast it's moving, and it calculates the relative speed, calculates the Doppler shift, and then transmits at that frequency. So it's a calculated value. And this is what Mike Exner told me that made me drop my sandwich, which was, if you can change the navigational data going into this box you can change the frequency that it transmits at. So you could make the plane seem like it's going south when it's really going north.
That changes the game for you.
And so I'm like, wait a minute, because now like things start to make sense in a way that they hadn't before. Remember, we talked about how this box got turned back on and no one could explain why. They couldn't explain why would a captain who wanted to commit suicide turn the satellite box on and off again? And there were various theories that people came up with, but they seemed pretty outlandish.
Is there a way that could have been an accident, though?
People have speculated on things like a fire or something, but when a fire happens on a plane, it's very catastrophic and deadly. It's one of the most dangerous things that can happen on a plane. And so you would either try to land it as quickly as possible, you'd issue a mayday, you try to get down, or the plane would just crash. It's possible. There's always like an X factor. Like maybe there's an explanation that we haven't had yet. When Air France 447 was found and they retrieved the black box, this was a mystery on par with MH370 at the time. Until they found the black box and they realized what happened, it was a kind of strange combination of events that nobody had predicted. It really was an unexpected turn of events. So there may be an explanation that is quite, that's true that we just haven't thought of, or just is too, idiosyncratic for us to kind of imagine. But if this was somebody on the plane, we're imagining this kind of infinitely clever, attacker. It explains why this box was turned back on. Because they were essentially leaving a false trail of breadcrumbs to make it look like the plane was going south when it actually went north.
Is there a part of you, and I got to challenge this just because, like in my line of work, for example, the way I came up with this podcast was I had to edit crazy clips, right? And you sit here with the same, say, 60-second area. You listen to it 700 times, 1,000 times between the edit. You put a song with it. You put visuals with it. There's this suspension of reality that happens where you're so deep into it that you get to a point that when you have to do the audio master at the end, like if I do a 20, 25-hour edit, I'm not sure if I can hear the voice better over the song because I've heard the same thing said a million times versus if like it actually is correct. So I'll send out, I used to send out like a clip to Alessi or someone who hasn't edited it to that point to get their thought. And I'll explain where I'm going with this in a minute, to get their thoughts on, okay, how the first time you heard this, how well did you hear what's being said versus the music? Because I don't want the music to overtake what's being said. Meaning there's just this suspension that happens where you have to get a second eye on it because you're biased within that search. So relating that to what you do, at this point, you've now been working on this case for months. You are knees deep in it, consuming what you do. This is like, of all the reporting you've ever done, this is probably the most wild case, at least in aviation, you had covered to that point. Is there a part of you that says like, okay, maybe Mike and I found this thing, but step back for a second. Am I now trying to fit the peg into this square peg into this square hole that we found to explain it versus, hey, we found a square hole, but we may not have a square peg, meaning like maybe the theory you end up coming up with, which is that someone from the jet goes down into that box and controls it. Maybe that's not what happened, but it would make sense if it did. I might be reaching, though, in doing that. Like I'm suspended in where reality is because I've been working so deeply on this case, like Charlie and It's Always Sunny trying to solve it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So maybe one way of answering it is like, what was my confidence level that this is what happened? My confidence was extremely low. But what I was trying to do was to answer the question, are we 100% confident that this BFO data was generated in an innocent way? Meaning whoever, because you have to understand that if Zaharie Ahmad Shah took the plane, the captain had taken the plane in order to commit suicide, there's no way he could have known about BTO or BFO data.
Why is that?
Even people in the, because it's a very arcane thing within the world of satellite communications. Like you would have to work in satellite communications to know that these are parameters that are important in keeping up your network. It's like a part of network maintenance. It's very technical. It's very arcane. And the BTO data actually, we keep talking about Air France 447. They had only started recording BTO data within the previous year because they realized that it would have been useful potentially in an Air France 447 type of situation.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.